Well, hello all, one and all. Into the great unknown we go for February 17th through the 23rd, 2022. Welcome to another CIRF report. And into the great unknown is because the end is near. Ooh, that's hard to say. The end is near. I think we all know it. The growing amount of people who are seeing what's really happening is growing bountifully to the point where we can start seeing the end in sight, or the peak, if you will. But as you approach the peak of a mountain, you can see it. That's fine. But then in the back of your mind, you're wondering what's on the other side. And that's the sensation this week. How do I know? Well, we do our triangulation for influences. And although it's a sort of a lower congruency, and I'll describe why here in a second, we have a direct overlap between I-Ching, nearing completion, and tropical astrology. Sun goes into Pisces. Sun goes into Pisces is sort of the end is in sight. We're not at the end of the zodiac, but the sun is going into the last sign of the zodiac. And so, you can start to feel that ending that is near, but like I said, but what's after that? That's what's might bring about some anxiety for you. To go into a little more detail, the purple circle is where the tropical astrology is, and we have a grand Earth trine to kick off our week. We have Uranus and Jupiter doing some wonderful exact sextile there. We have the intensity of Mars and Venus with some electrification of Uranus. And then we have a T-square on Mercury. Now, the offshoot here, we have the collective unconscious, the dream bot. People's dreams are dreaming in a manner to where it looks like animals. One of those words is cat, which matches full moon in Leo. Now, full moon in Leo was Wednesday on the 16th. But that energy, plus or minus 24 hours, it just decays over time. And so there's some remnants of that in the Dreambot with animals. But there's also a continuum, a really interesting continuum that I'll talk about when we get to the Dreambot. Okay. Now, what last things that I want to say? Let's just get going. All right. Let's talk about the quick comments, and we'll get into the Dreambot next. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that and get over to Rumble and subscribe over there. Very important to do. Now, I do have a shout out as I clean some stuff up here on the fly. I have a shout out to all our Rumble folks. And I know there's a lot of people over there, but I'm not too sure how that algorithm works. This is sort of the lower viewage that we've seen over there. And there's not really anything that's been different. So I'm wondering why that's lower. Not anybody's fault. I'm just curious. If you haven't signed over to Rumble, make sure you subscribe there, especially since YouTube, you never know. All right. Big shout out to Teresios Fever. I hope I pronounced that right. That person says very precise. Shout out as a new commenter. Thank you. A Northern Lady says, sounds like a good week for a road trip to DC. I couldn't agree more. Has anybody seen those views of DC? Seems like sort of a ghost town, if you will. Mr. Energy 511 says, the lion is awakening. I'm a Taurus born in the year of the Tiger 74. I'm stubborn as hell, but I love freedom. And then Melanie says, but I'm a big weirdo and proud of it. And I know what we're talking about is the Uranus. And I've got to say, I'm there too. Big weirdo. May not look like it, but yeah, I don't belong in most collective group things, although I, as an Aquarian, do have humanitarian intentions. But I do feel the uniqueness. I think we all should be unique, and we are unique. Kathleen says, gee whiz, Mr. McCleary, whomever is responsible by this? That's a good question, Kathleen. I don't know. And Selena, winner of this week's Best Comment Award, says, send prayers for healing in all our communities. Amen. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. And let's get into the Dreambot. These are people's dreams. And the most common word that is surging in the dreamland, a collective unconscious, is bear. Well, guess what? It could be an animal. Those are the red arrows with sort of a hunting kind of a flavor with path and shot and bite and animals and cat. There's that cat is the lion. It's on its way out though, and that's still happening as above, so below. So the collective unconscious is draining the cat, not draining, but waning, and the full moon in Leo, that energy is waning as well. So same time there. But what's happening with bear as a metaphor? Bear could be Russia or the old Soviet Union, if you remember that. But look at number 2, theater. There's my linguistics. Bear, theater. And maybe, just maybe, everything that you see from the bear or from Russia it's just theater. God, I hope so. Don't you? And I don't like to be teased or deceived, but I'd sure like to be deceived in terms of a just pretend or fake or theater instead of a war breaking out. That's what I'd rather have. I'd rather have it's just an illusion, just ha ha ha. But more importantly, in this run, the blue arrows represent a continuum in my mind. The segmented or the dashed arrows are representing awake, and I did misput. That's supposed to be a solid arrow right there, but you get the idea that curiosity and awakeness is part of this blue arrow, but the solid ones are more of asleep. There are slightly more asleep arrows than there are awake. So anyway, I'm thinking possibly dark to light, just that continuum, and hopefully in that direction. Whew, I hope I said that all right. And give your comments below while we get talking about the astrology. All planets are direct, so there's nothing holding us back in terms of that. Let me darken this up. We have Jupiter and Uranus going in a perfect sextile to kick off this week on the 18th. Then we have, actually that's the 17th. That number is slightly off. But anyway, Sun going into Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and we'll talk about what that means. And then lastly, Mars and Pluto, two of the home rulers of Scorpio, in both intense, one internal power, one external power, the two power symbols of the zodiac, they are in a conjunction towards the end of this week, but they're also in the same elevation, so that's pretty cool. They're really going to be together, and that's going to be a very powerful conjunction. That's not until another CIRF or 2 weeks. All right, day to day, Thursday the 17th. There's a lot going on here. As you can see, a big grand Earth trine. It's actually a double because of the Mars and Venus together in Capricorn. These are still only 10 minutes apart, so they're holding hands very tightly. They're not in the same azimuth, but nonetheless, a very tight conjunction. Electrified over by Uranus. The intensity and the passion get electrified by the freedom-loving, eccentric, rebellious Uranus, who's the mad scientist. And then it completes the circle with some very rational but useful, practical emotions. That's in Virgo, moon in Virgo. And this whole thing lights up, and the outcome could be a possibility of just what's real, What do we really see? And that's part of being awake, just the cold, hard truth. That's not like the truth from knowledge of Aquarian, like the age of Aquarius, but it's just showing you what it really is. And people can't deny it anymore. All right. So that's pretty cool. And then on top of that, and we have Uranus sextile Jupiter. That goes exact on the 17th. This is Thursday. And so you can see Jupiter is a little faster moving than Uranus. They're only 4 minutes apart from a perfect sextile. So obviously on this day, 17th, Jupiter will go exact here with Uranus. It's a little slower moving. Uranus obviously being slower than Jupiter, but those two together being relatively slower planets. So this sextile has been a part of our layout for quite some time, but it goes exact today on the 17th. And this unlocks a lot of archetypes. Number one, judgments. So Jupiter is more of the judge, the wise one, the transcendent view of reality, and Uranus being the freedom lover. So judgments, 4, that's the sextile, is in opportunities. So there's an opportunities for judgments for freedom. Oh my God, that gives me chills. Then there's travel. Jupiter represents long distance travel, and Uranus about technology. So maybe there's an opportunity for more technologies. Looking at some more metaphors is the spiritual insights that we get that invoke great change. So there's a lot packed in there and some more. But basically, the grand Earth trine is the front and center. We have independence and change in one corner. We have practical, raw, useful emotions in another corner. And then we have extreme passion, a part of this. And so powerful grenade, that's the Uranus grenade of raw emotion, boom, and extreme passion that shakes and shocks everyone out of hypnosis. Why? Because the material world, the earth signs, it's a little harder to be in hypnosis when you're just out in the real world. You're present. You're practical. You're seeing just what is, just the cold, hard truth. Seeing what it really is. So I'm looking forward to that 17th. I'm looking forward to Thursday. That's some 2 powerful alignments. And I think very pleasant. Friday, 18th. This is when the sun at 10:42 Central Time goes into Pisces. And the whole context of ego and the feeling to ego really shifts dramatically. Now, the sun in Aquarius, as you know, because you've been watching CIRF reports, that the sun is weakened. It's in detriment in Aquarius. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean it's hard to have an ego there. It just means that ego is not front and center. It's not the driver's seat. So it's easy for Aquarians to let the other layers of self be in control, or to be more humble, that kind of thing. Knowledge is important in Aquarius, but all that shifts when the sun goes into Pisces. And it's a watery, soupy, transcendent connectedness is there, and the ego comes back up. And the ego, and again, none of these are good or bad. The ego, as a strong ego, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but can get in the way of spiritualism. So you can have an ego-based spiritualism, which is sort of the downside of Pisces, easily to get reactive on spiritual matters. We've got some other cool alignments here. We have Jupiter and Neptune, ruler of Pisces, is also here. So the emphasis is going to shift towards more of connectedness, transcendence, spiritual insights, maybe even some mysticism that is involved here, so such as like telepathy and synchronicities, etc. All right. So this is a match as the sun goes into Pisces on the 18th. This is a direct match to our I-Ching near completion. This is exactly what it's referring to, because the sun has one more sign before the end of the zodiac. We also have a starting Neptune with 2 sextiles over to our passion intense Mars and Venus. This represents the intensity added by the raw, useful emotions. Those get fed into the intensity, as well as the intensity of Pluto, and then we've got this electrified over on Uranus again. But I drifted over. I was going to talk about the sextile, and I got sidetracked. But you have the intensity with opportunities in Neptune. Neptune is planet of dreams and illusion and imagination. And this is where reality begins, basically. If you can't imagine it, it can't be brought forth. Starts with the mind, and this is the deeper imaginative part of the mind. But it's passion and fantasy or intense dreams, but the point is they're opportunities. So don't be afraid of fearful or panicky, or I'm not saying you're going to have nightmares, but if you do, I would advise to try not to be afraid of what's not real, so that you can have the opportunity to direct that intensity and use the energies. I'm not saying it's a nightmare. You might have real positive dreams, but nonetheless, look for your dreams, record your dreams, look at your daydreams, look at where your mind goes. And these represents opportunities of placements to put your intensity and passion. And then huge shout out to Northern Lady on Saturday the 19th. Becomes her birthday. Oh, it's February 19th, baby here. Happy birthday, Northern Lady. All right. With Uranus, we have a lot of focus here. This is a lot more emphasis. And something I didn't mention, but the Uranus square Saturn is still there. And that is about 6 degrees. And what we're looking for as a rule of thumb of about 8 degrees is going to be sort of the final, legitimate sense of feeling this energy. So we're almost to the end of independent, rebellious, freedom-loving Uranus in conflict with the status quo and government. That conflict is also nearing completion according to the stars. Then we have Uranus square Mercury, and we sort of start this thing all over again. Although Mercury and Saturn are far different entities, now we start a faster moving square, i.e. conflict. So now my thoughts and communication, that's Mercury, and our short distance travel is a little bit more Aquarian in nature, so a little bit distance, great observation, knowledge based is important, and that's in conflict with the change of the material world, for a lack of a better metaphor, and those are at odds with each other. So this energy doesn't pass between each other real well, but the emphasis, again, look at all those roads, those inconjuncts, trines, sextiles going to Uranus. The emphasis is on freedom, independence, not afraid to rebel, all that kind of stuff. On Sunday, the 20th, we have a transformation of how we love, because the intensity of Mars and Venus, who are now about 30 minutes, about a half a degree apart from each other, they're entering into a conjunction with Pluto. And so we have together, these are intensity and passion, but Pluto by itself is the very deep layers of intensity and passion. So once this twin flame starts passing Pluto, you're going to see a whole new level of intensity as the whole thing lights up the deep internal side, and then the outer physical part. All the layers are basically empowered, but now we have the emotions at odds with it. But that puts pressure on it, the pressure, the emotional pressure, and needs an outlet. So guess where that's going to go? Up towards Saturn. And it'll maybe be a last hurrah for the status quo right there. And it's going to be very brief because it's the moon. Monday, the 21st, we have a T-square on Mercury. And let's just focus on trying to think better, communicate. Some people are going to feel trapped in their heads. Some people are going to feel like a juxtaposition chess match, or more appropriately, like in between a rock and a hard place, inner conflict, because the energy doesn't flow very well this way, and the energy doesn't flow very well this way. There's two squares over here on this side, two squares over here on this side. So anyway, the thoughts is a trap. It would behoove you to be out of your head on February 21st. It's a Monday, and living in the practical world would help that. On Tuesday, now this one's interesting. This is first is a happy birthday to George Washington. This is not the observed holiday. I think that would be President's Day is on Monday the 21st, I believe. But the known birthday apparently is on the 22nd. Now look at all the twos that we have. February is also numbered 2. So we have 22nd of 2, and 2022 is the year. And we also have Tuesday, so we have another 2. But that's not even the end. We have Neptune is at 22 degrees of Pisces. We have 2 squares over here. We have 2 sextiles over here. We have 2 trines, 2 more sextiles. 2 is everywhere on this day. 2 is the number of union. And for all you numerologists out there, I'm not a specialized person in numerology, but what do you think? All these 2s, what does that mean for us? Does that mean a togetherness, a harmony, being able to work it out together? Maybe, just maybe. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. But we have the moon going over the south node, so bringing emotions of the past, deep, intense emotions. That's Scorpio. And all roads are here to the moon. So we've got an opposition, 2 trines, a square. There's just a lot happening to the emotions and being pulled in all different directions. All right. So a lot of, chaotically inside and very intense emotions. So just be ready on the 22nd. Emotions might be all over the place. Okay. A lot of 2s there. And then on our finale, Wednesday, the 23rd, this is going exact. So Mars and Venus going exact with the dreams of Neptune to 22 degrees. So Mars is there, and then obviously Venus will get there exact too. But this intensifies the dreams even more. Everything what I mentioned before, there's opportunities there. So don't be avoiding daydreams. Don't be avoiding where your illusions are, or just nighttime dreams. It's a great week to record those dreams. All right. Let's get into the I-Ching. And the influence is nearing completion. Let's see what it stands for. The situation is incomplete. but the chaos of the past is giving way to order. I know everyone's feeling this. The goal is in sight. Nevertheless, you are still treading on thin ice. The game isn't over. Though the way ahead is unobstructed and the goal is clear, a cautious and careful attitude is still important, lest you slip and fall. Nearing completion is the last hexagram of the I-Ching, just like the sun going into the last sign of the zodiac, Pisces. It suggests that the ever-spinning wheel of life never reaches a final conclusion. No end is ever really complete without a new beginning stirring inside of it. And there is some of us are going to feel the anxiety of that. What's next? This is what that's all about. The situation represented by this reading can be compared to taking a lengthy trek over a high mountain. At some point before reaching the peak, you can see in detail exactly how much farther you have to travel. You will have a good idea of what it will take to reach the top because the climbing experience you've accumulated thus far. However, when you do reach the peak, which has been in sight for quite a long period of sustained effort, you will have done only that. You will have reached the top and achieved your initial goal, but you still must descend the other side. The last critical segment is what remains before completion. All right. Consider, too, the possibility that you have little information and no experience of what it's like descending the other side of the mountain because all your attention has been focused on the path going up. Hence, the what now moment. I was projecting that to be out in March, and I'm still standing by that, but especially starting now. And how long is this period? Is this the end, the only 1 week? I don't think so. I think this is the beginning of the end, in my opinion. I think that's what this is representing. Let's look at the change line. Line 1, in periods of chaos, there's a natural tendency to become anxious. Throw caution to the wind and rush ahead. Like the young fox that dashes across a frozen lake, it will be treading on thin ice if an attempt is made to escape problems too quickly. So it's a time where you got to watch your escapism. You can't just be too excited about the finish line or too I don't want to say exaggerated on your assessments. So we want to see life much more realistically, and that's what that grand earth trine really helps us to do. But let's go ahead and talk the solution. I think a lot of you are gonna like this. It's called Cutting Through. It's hexagram 21. Current circumstances call for confronting a thorny situation and cutting through it. Somehow the way to harmony and unity is blocked and frustrated, perhaps by a tangle of deceit or corruption. You don't say. Take decisive action and you will meet with good fortune and even your destiny. Don't be afraid to shake things up a bit. Those who bring discipline to bear must, above all, be honest. Honesty is the hallmark of strong and self-confident. Be careful, keep careful records and do not hesitate to go public with the truth. All right, here we go. Let's get into the conversion chart. This is where I convert from Tropical, the inside zodiac, and Sidereal. This is the zodiac that you go look outside and see for yourself. So the sun goes into Pisces at 00 Pisces, and that is hexagram 30 in the rave. And we just barely get Aquarius as our solution. So 30 in the rave is the clinging fire, freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as a fate. That's not imprisonment, as it might sound to you. This is not being enslaved this week because we're converting this all around. Remember, Uranus in charge. All focus on Uranus. Line 6 is enforcement. This is where the sun is as it goes into Pisces. The discipline to make right action. The assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak. The strength to eliminate negative feelings. Now, the downside risk is an inherent peacefulness that all too often will abide the presence of inferior forces, a lack of strength in eliminating negative feelings. Let me explain this really quick before we get to the final slide. Is we are being told who is weak and who is strong, right? It's not accurate. And this all turns the tables, and it may or may not be very prevalent to everyone who ends up being strong and weak, but who they say are the weak are actually the strong. And I think that has to do with the dream bot, where the collective unconscious is talking about hunting animals. It's sort of that same meme. The hunter becomes the hunted. And we have to be okay with not being inherently peaceful. Although we are all peaceful and we want peace, we can't. That's not the solution to this condition according to the rave, because when you're just too peaceful, it allows the presence of those weak entities, the actual weak, to be present and to fester and foster. And so now that you have that background, and I know I still didn't probably explain everything, let's get into the solution, and you'll get it all right here. Let's get our final slide going. Remember the thin ice? This is where we are. We're still on thin ice. And so you don't want to just dart across this lake. Or some of us are going to be feeling this anxiety and trying to get this anxiety resolved. And in doing so, as you just sort of haphazardly, there's the finish line, I'm almost done, and you just speed through it, you actually might do a disastrous problem. Remember, the I-Ching said nearing completion, so feelings of impulsive escapism. That's what this guy did. He was trying to escape and went through some thin ice. Some of us will have high anxiety. The unknown of what lies on the other side of the peak. Situation is incomplete, but the way ahead is unobstructed and the goal is clear. So, for example, I can see the other side of this lake, so therefore I'll just drive across the lake. Well, obviously the ice needs to support you, so it doesn't mean you can't go across the lake in this case. It means check first, pause, take time, no escapism, right? That's where we start with the solution. And remember that we had cutting through, face your fears, take decisive action. We had the rave that said assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak. I want to let that one soak in. And then we had Sidereal Aquarius, which is just the deep thinker, humanitarian, observer, and very independent. All right, so here we go with the triangulation. As we near the completion of what will be considered a very tragic and dark period of human history, there are new concerns about what comes next. Starting with the rave, the ones who remain either in shock about or with refusal to assimilate the undeniable truths will be the weak and inferior. The rave gate is therefore enforcement, having the assertiveness to lead the weak. The I-Ching demands we cut through the restrictive emotions and inner conflicts and take decisive action. We are to demonstrate self-confidence and good leadership. The Aquarian solution adds the independent, big picture, humanitarian thinking, impeccable observation, and even a flair of mediation, peacekeeping, harmonizing. Watch out for and avoid being too detached during this period. That's one of the risks of Aquarius, being too detached. Equally important to avoid sarcasm and aloofness. So the behavioral balance this week is about taking decisive action, leading the weak, and we've already defined who that is, going public with the truth, but not energetically attached to the situation. That's the Aquarian part. Being able to stay unattached. I'm not saying detached. I'm saying unattached, but yet speaking the truth and not being afraid of the truth. All that very possible. In fact, one of the Aquarians' top gifts is all of that. So putting it all together with the I-Ching, the Raven, the Aquarian solution, you could possibly use this phrase: I take decisive action without fear while remaining neutral and unattached. All right. I really hope this helps. And I think this is a great corollary to the advancement that we got last week with the Leo energy. And then this week is about continuing that on, and very specifically, not just resting on your laurels and taking decisive action, unafraid, still moving forward, moving definitively forward without sarcasm, without aloofness. It's time to take the lead. We are the leaders now. All right. All right. Well, let's see here. Any other? Appreciate everybody. I appreciate everyone here. Thanks for the likes, the subscriptions, the comments, and let me know how I can do better. How about that? Let's don't be afraid of critiquing, and if you've got a suggestion, don't be afraid to send that to me, either by comment or by email, nationaldreamcenter@gmail.com. All right, everybody. Love and light. We'll see you next week. All right. Another powerful CIRF report. And hopefully this energy continues to be something that we can really utilize to free this world. All right. Take care. See ya.